I'd like to welcome back to the show my friend and fellow artist, Kenny Jordan. Kenny, I'd love to talk to you about drawing today. What do you think?
That's good since that's what I do.
Yeah, hopefully you have a lot to say about it. In particular, I want to talk about how we originate in drawing, genesis in drawing, using drawing to put ideas down on paper. Um, so before we get into it, that would be nice to give a little story. This one's about Pliny the Elder, a Roman author who lived from 23 to 79 CE. In his book Naturalis Historiae, he recorded the origin of drawing. So this is the mythological origin of drawing in the West. So here's the exact story as translated. Long ago, in the city of Corinth in ancient Greece, a young maid traced the contour of her lover's face on the wall. The man was leaving on a long trip, so she figured out a way to preserve his image. With the help of a lamp, she cast the shadow of his profile and used it as a guide. So that's the story. So drawing very well may have originated by tracing a shadow, but today we know that drawing is much older than the Greeks. The oldest surviving drawings are deep in caves around the world, estimated to be 40,000 to 60,000 years old, and it seems reasonable to believe that drawing existed long before the oldest cave drawings. Drawings could have been done on hide, wood, paper, clay, or simply in the sand for as long as humans have been a species. The true origin of drawing is lost to us. Whatever the case, as seen in the myth above, drawing originates from an absence. A drawing is thus a symbol that represents what is not there. Just as a photo can represent me in my absence, so too does a drawing or a tracing on the wall represent a loved one. A symbol, or to use a philosophical term, a signifier refers to a real thing that is represented or signified. These signifiers can be transformed into a visual language capable of communicating complex significances. Early Chinese writing was just simple drawings of things in nature, and it was the same with the Egyptian hieroglyphs. But over time, these formed into abstract characters. But at its essence, drawing then is a form of visual communication signifying real or abstract things. Okay? So we're able to talk about things that are not there through drawing, just like we're able to use language to talk about things that aren't there. All right. So do your response.
I like to add that we're also talking about things that are there that aren't perceived by sometimes the other viewers or who else is viewing what we're drawing.
So maybe like a perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Or an awareness. We help each other be aware of things. So drawing one awareness to another um, could be a form.
Hmm. So I mean, this is a nice story. I think there's some truth in it about absence. Drawing is very complex, and people do it for many different reasons. Other than that, right? But I think just to stick to a thesis, we're going to talk about how to originate things with drawing, right? And if you think about it, almost everything around us, every product, building, car, clothes, starts out as a sketch, right? Any type of creative person is probably sketching or writing, right? That also signifies something down the idea into something more permanent. We're taking from this mental to the physical to make it more permanent so that we can look at it and make alterations to it because it's very hard to visualize mentally. It takes a lot of effort and you can't share that with anyone. The drawing is something that you can share.
Question.
Yeah.
Um, I'm assuming when you say drawing, you're about it being difficult. You're pointing to an image in your mind that is absent from everyone else's present eye, or the view, or the creator's own present physical eye.
Yeah, so, like, we can use a drawing to represent something that we have seen, right? Like the portrait in the story or anything. We can draw anything that we can perceive, right? But there's also things that that we perceive inwardly, right? Thoughts, feelings, imaginings, and it can come out the other way, right? So that's recording things that we see outside, but we can also record things that we see inside. And that's what creative people do is they come up with something in their head, they perceive that thing in their head, and then they try to get it down in writing or a drawing.
Get you?
But I think it would be fun for us to go back to our origins of drawing,
Cool.
get out of all this complex philosophical stuff and bring it back down to the ground. Um, so for you, do you even remember beginning to draw, or do you have any early memories of drawing?
Yeah, some of my first early memories of drawing is drawing at my grandmother's house at her kitchen table. And I remember, let me clarify. The drawing of, marking things on a piece of paper. Um, Drawing before that, I'm probably drawing in the sky. I'm probably drawing in people's heads. Before that, but actually putting things on paper, my grandmother's house, before elementary school. What about you?
Like, so what were you drawing with crayons or
Yeah, markers were a no. They'll bleed through the paper, get on my grandmother's mouth on the table. Pencils were used for specific things around the house, so it may be, pencils don't last long, so crayon is more kid friendly, cheaper. But yeah.
okay. Um, I've been drawing before I can remember drawing. I have seen videos of myself drawing as a kid, and I was pretty impressed by the attitude I carried, the force with I drew with. Yeah, the videos of me. I'm opening up the coloring book, and I'm just smashing the crayon or Sharpie into the page and just scratching it everywhere, like vigorously. And then I just rip it off and go to the next page. And that's how I colored. But I think there's something there, right? When you're a kid, everything's new and just you're able to think and your energy moves your arm and that arm makes a mark. And I think there's something magical about it. There's something fascinating about color at that age. I remember I collected all sorts of translucent plastic objects that I would stare through, look at how the rays of the light fractured off into colors.
Mm-hmm.
I was fascinated visually when I was young, and I have very early. I think my earliest memory is in Florida, looking up where the chimney was being built, and there was a blue tarp on the roof, and that blue, I thought it was the sky, but it wasn't sky. That's the first thing I remember was the blue of that tarp.
Oh, sick.
But yeah, so I think drawing is just like this kind of miracle happening as a kid where you're just slamming around, you have all this energy and you can make this mark and you can record this thing and look at it. And then even better, people start treating you nice after that. They start going, "Wow, look at that thing you did." You're like, what's happening? This is a good thing. People appreciate me for this. I better keep doing this."
Um,
What do you think?
that was a little different for me. So my my experience with validation when it comes to drawing was, yeah, you didn't get in trouble today. Good job. You put your mind to use. Besides reading a book, and in school it was you're drawing or you're coloring like incorrectly. So um, I think I was able to kind of keep my own essence of moving forward in what we like call art, or what I call my form of art today, because you know I was kind of like strayed away in one area, or wasn't praised in the same manner as usually, like maybe well later on in school, when it's like, hey, you drew that so well, keep going. I didn't. That wasn't my first experience, so I kept going beyond that, and it's because drawing in that aspect comes second. That's not that's not what I consider drawing. When I hear people say drawing, even to this day, it slightly confuses me, because that's that's removed from the action to me of what drawing is.
So, how were you drawing before you were drawing? What does that mean?
Um, I'm either trying to, I'll say the word manifest, but I'm trying to actualize something um in a space, from like a point of reference, or attribute what I'm trying to do, figure out something, understand something, express something, um, make appear. And all these things happen, or they lead up into the action of drawing. So doing this before drawing, it was having conversations, um, trying to figure out how I got from my house to my grandmother's house, understanding when people move their mouth a certain way when they're talking and words coming out, um, playing sports or doing an activity and learning how to do it different, learning how to copy, mimic. Just it's a way of learning in a way, and you know, copying the feeling of something, as well as giving me giving myself a record to think about it.
Hmm. So, for you, drawing is tied into the act of understanding, trying to understand, um, not just on a 2D plane, but just in your actual life, of trying to do something you've never done before, right?
Yeah, life was I start being having the awareness of life before I start having the awareness of drawing. So life always hits me before the act of drawing.
So for you, you had that experience of trying to figure things out and maybe using elements around you to create like these new possibilities. And then when you were
Right.
handed crayons or whatever it was, that was just another expression of that experience. Wasn't
Yeah,
anything new.
I didn't know what that was. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a lot of a meta awareness for a child.
I it's more every child has feelings. So it's more of, just dealing with your feelings as a child. And for me, that's all it was. These feelings may provoke certain thoughts after the fact, but like I said, they need to be recorded to retrace those steps and understand that, oh, I maybe went down a certain thought process, and then understand that until elementary school.
Yeah, I guess I can agree with that too. I mean, I was always interested in things, figuring out things, right? I was
Yeah.
pretty devious too, like, my mom told me a story about, this is I guess I'm a psychopath, but, like, so there's these bugs, and I had been bitten by a bug, right? It stung me, and so if I wanted to know if a bug was safe, I would take my sister's hand and touch the bug, and then I would know if it was safe or not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's those type of things where drawing like really comes from.
That's
That's
drawing.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
creativity.
I tell people like all the time, like when I me understanding what drawing is, I immediately knew how to do different things in sports. I immediately know how to come up with stuff. I immediately know how to solve problems. And I started getting good at lying. Like all those things are like hand in hand.
So the drawing, the paper and the pencil are just tools for expressing this mental thing, right? That's what we're getting to with this. Maybe that's the origin of drawing for us. Was trying to um figure something out, create something new out of nothing, or recombine things that are around us, synthesize them into something new to use. Because we didn't know anything, right?
Right.
You draw your way to understanding, and
Yeah.
with the pencil or whatever way. But so in relation to absence, that's an absence of understanding, right?
To me, it's just nothing. So it's to me, it's not. It is an absence, but in a different view, it's just potential.
Potential. Right. So when you draw, you're working with potential. All creative people are working with a potential, and they through drawing, they are able to think out these possibilities and record them and document them and be able to share. So like here are some ideas for this architectural design. Here are ideas for the new iPhone design, whatever, right? Or here's the ideas for the next painting. We're able to sketch those things out roughly and then build upon it, right? So that's sort of the originating potential of drawing, right? To begin bringing something from the mind into reality.
Um, yeah, and I'll just say yeah. But it does. You know, I don't want to get too far from absence because absence is like a huge catalyst. I mean, like once you get to the nothing, you do understand that you're working with empty space. And once you correlate something that is and something that isn't, it's very easy to then see absence. And now you know where to place that potential. You place that potential in that absence.
So you go you go to an absence in your mind to imagine and bring out that potential for being. Is that what you mean?
No, potential's first, absence is second.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Meaning you live every day. You might not know what you're gonna do after you wake up. Some people already plan for what they're gonna potentially do. And but like you're dealing with the absence of yesterday and you're dealing with the absence of tomorrow. So it's kind of like you got to grab hold of what's now and then you can know what you're going to utilize that now for. Am I making sense?
Okay. Yeah, so then there's two parts.
Mhm.
There's the potential for action,
Mhm.
and then there's the absence of the things that's already been done, right? Or the things that will happen in the future, the past and the
Right.
future, right? They're both absences, but the day is the potential.
Correct.
Okay. So how does that relate to drawing then and the creative
Um,
act?
but because I see drawing as just a way of travel, and you can kind of express the travel that you went upon. You can express how you're traveling, or you can. So it's you're traveling to a group of nations, but you're utilizing a group of nations to get there. So you have a collection of things that you know how to do and that you don't know how to do. You have a collection of yourself, what you may be thinking and what you may be feeling, and then you have that absence and what's around that absence because there's a parameter and such to be attained. And once you put all these three things together, you kind of have essences as well as practical things externally to draw upon and to draw to.
Hmm. I think these things are really hard to talk about because these are very subtle events that happen in the mind.
Yeah, very
Kind of
subtle.
pre words, pre logic.
Mhm.
Um, but if you're creative a lot, then you get in touch with these originating mindsets, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, let's progress out of childhood. So how have you brought that, through your life, maybe up into this very moment? How has that developed?
I've drawn actively and I've drawn passively So actively, I've always been able to get to the absence of something. So it's okay. I know I can potentially do something today. I'm gonna creatively figure out what I want to do. So I got to make my problem. Okay, once I find out what my problem is, that's my absence. And so I would just want to go everywhere and be myself, whether that's figuring out a lampshade and okay, how do I make a lampshade? But I know nothing about making lampshades or something out of materials. At least I know how to draw. At least I know how to copy it to some degree. Or in sports, as I developed into sports, it was, you know, how do I make a move in a precise manner or get around someone? Um, and then starting to understand that I have physical challenges to overcome. I didn't know that, but first I had to be creative. And then, even just with relationships, knowing how to balance a relationship, understanding that, hey, I like for things to be, balanced and fair. And I have other people in my family or friends that don't care, that they speak from a strong place. So, learning how to manipulate a situation. So I've always drawn, but when there's something in my hand, there's a new relationship, me and that piece of paper. And now I have a just a wild a bag of things in my head to record, so piece of paper just recording as I got older. What about you?
Mm. Yeah, so I mean, I grew up in the countryside and
Mm-hmm.
we just made things, right? Um, if we wanted something, we would just make it,
Yeah.
right? So I learned how to build really young. I remember I wanted for Christmas and stuff saws, jigsaws, chop saws. I wanted things like that to build stuff, right? Me and my friends, we built tree houses, we built a dock, we built rafts, we built a skate park. We built a skate
Sick.
park out of, hurricane debris. Our whole neighborhood got leveled, but for us, it was, like, the best time. We built this whole skate park out of pieces of houses, and, we were very creative, you know? Uh, we looked at the things around us,
Mm-hmm.
right? We had the potential, and then we had an absence, something that we lacked, but we wanted. Maybe
Yeah.
a lack or desire is the
Mm-hmm.
absence. We wanted a skate park, right? I wanted to skate, but we did not have access to a skate park. We could not go anywhere close to a skate park. So we looked at the things around us of potential and we made one, right? In our mind, first, we had to learn how to construct a skate ramp. We had to get the tools and then we executed, right? So that's drawing. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, I can see how drawing applies, not just to pencil and paper, but to whole life. I'm currently drawing right now. Like I looked at the career potentials. I looked at the way things are in the art market and everything. And I had a lack, I had an absence of something I wanted. So I made my own school and I made this podcast and I made my own art, right? And so I realized that thing. It began in my mind or even my whole artistic journey. I wanted to be an artist. I didn't know how. I went out and found education, right? I got loans and shit and I did it. So
Yeah.
so that's originating drawing, right? So that's the power of the creative. Um, to have the mental ability to look at potentials around you, the materials, or your own physical energy, your own physical thought, or other people around you. And then you have the lack, the absence, that thing you desire that you want to bring into reality, and the ability to find a way to do that. Right? And that process is usually a mess, usually full of a bunch of failure. But if you are consistent, you will get some sort of result, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how you just kind of like brought that all the way like home, and what popped in my mind was craftsmanship. I sometimes I think we take drawing and art for granted because we tend to just look at it as the craftsmanship. We don't look at it from the origins of it, of actually drawing. We just automatically assume that, everyone's drawing already, which they are. It's just, people have real questions of how to like secure certain spaces in their mind and utilize them before you get to crafts. And some people are already there and they just want to build upon their craftsmanship. So
So you call that whole creative act as craftsmanship.
I call the perception of viewing what you did or as you're doing it with some intent and passion. I call that craftsmanship because you care about how it's being done. But the
Mm,
actual doing it and the starting of it to get to that, to understand that you have a desire in the first place and put it together, I call that drawing.
mm. Yeah, I kind of think of the originating part as artistry. Like that's what I think of being an artist is being able to originate. And that's
Yeah,
also drawing, right? That
yeah,
we're talking about. And then I think of craftsmanship as the execution, the knowledge and the ability to execute that
right.
plan. Okay.
And I think that's what we usually critique people on is their craftsmanship. I mean, like, it's kind of hard to critique someone on art unless they're completely missing points. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Um,
I got a question.
yeah.
So, with all that being put together, how does that reflect in your mark making today as you draw or you paint? So,
Yeah, I've done so much training. I put a lot of attention on the mark. And when I begin teaching someone, doesn't matter how good they are, we go back to just making a mark. If that's not good, whatever you draw is not going to be good. If you're not able to focus that attention and have complete control of the mark that you're making, how are you going to make a nice painting or a nice drawing? So take it back to that when I start with someone. But there's two methods that influence my drawing today. The way we're talking about originating ideas, right?
hmm
Getting ideas down. So one that really influenced me a lot is Shoto calligraphy. It's a Japanese ink on paper tradition of calligraphy. I studied it at a Zen temple and is considered a religious practice. They believe that you can become enlightened through Shoto, just like through Zazen meditation. So the monks will put on their robe. They will do the opening ceremony. They'll do the Maka Hanya Harimita Shingyo, and then they ring the bell and they do the mantra. And then you start grinding the ink. I don't know the English word. I did all this in Italian. The inchiostro. It's like the stone you grind the ink on. And that takes about 10 minutes. And while you're doing that, you're setting your mind in the correct state. And in Zen, that is called mu, which is an absent, just a clear, crystal clear mental state, no thoughts and stuff going on. It's just a clear mental state. And also they believe that when you're grinding the ink on the ikiostra, that you're combining your chi with it, your vital force. So the
with
master,
intent.
yeah, the master combines their chi with the ink. And then when they go to paint it, they've done all this training. There's 9 little character movements, right? So you master those and you practice that word you're going to do. You do it a long time until it's muscle memory. And then when you go to perform it, um, then you want to not be academic completely. You want to be half academic, where you're doing the correct movements, but you also want to add spontaneity to it. This is where you add, like you do it in one fluid movement, and they imagine that the brush, like you're sewing, like it enters the paper, it exits the paper, and enters the paper. And they can tell if you pause on a movement or something, it has to be one fluid thing. It's incredibly difficult if you breathe incorrectly, if you hesitate, if you get thoughts in your mind, if you exit the move state, these expert people can read that in the character. They'll be like, "Here you breathed in. Here you got anxious. Here
Yeah.
you got sidetracked." It's incredible. A very, very sensitive, art medium, but I was doing that while I was at Florence Academy, so I'd take that back, and I would try to do, the alla prima stroke, where you put down the correct, shape, edge, color, color temperature, and value all in one stroke, and, I think that was a very powerful combination, but, today what I do is I do like setting your mind before you work, especially if you're doing creative work. You have to kind of, withdraw and empty your mind of thoughts and things and make that clear state, to do good work in a creative mindset. So I will do that. Um, and then the second aspect to my drawing right now is I take a method that was actually invented by Freud. He was trying to get to the unconscious mind, right? Through automatic movements. Okay, because there's like the Freudian slip that's considered something automatic, where you can get a glimpse of what's going on in the deeper mind. So he did this, you just make his patients scribble, right? Just scribble nonsense. And then or write out things. And then suddenly a sign from the unconscious would appear and he'd analyze that, right? I think there's a lot of BS in that stuff, but it's really
Really?
interesting. Yeah. But what happens though is I'll get into that meditative state. I'll start getting these cheap cardboard panels and I'll just plow through them with some cheap acrylic paint. And usually I do this late at night. And I just start going. And it's just spontaneous. I just start working and I'm responding to the thing on the canvas. And then the thing inside of me is going back and forth like a ping pong ball going in and out, in and out, in and out.
Mhm.
And most of them are bad. Most of them I just throw immediately in the trash. But a few of them, you know, they have an impact on me, right? There's like a strong composition and I can feel something complex happening in them, right? Something
Correct.
intuitive. And so that's the ones I'll put to the side and I'll think about for a while. So that is my originating process.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
complicated.
Now, there's a lot of things that it's cool to hear that all around the world, they practice these aspects of receiving and retrieving information.
Yeah, each culture does it a little bit differently. In the West, we just had like an obsession with realism for a while, but nowhere else seemed to have that. The I just told you the Far East one in India, they had a rasa, which is where you try to exaggerate the essence of something to make like a super stimulus. Right? I don't know if you ever seen like sculptures, the ancient Indian sculptures of their women and things like that, but they're very like curvy and everything. You try to you understand the essence of that thing, and then that's what you draw,
Hmm.
right? To make a super stimulus. Um, every culture does it differently. It's really interesting. What about you? What's your what's your process?
Uh, my process is remembering and forgetting, and I do that at certain times, and I purposely expand in an intuitive thinking way at a certain time, and I purposely expand in my craftsmanship at a certain time. And I don't mix the two. I learned that I get real stagnant when I try to expand both of these concepts or working practically while trying to understand or understand or go beyond at the same time. So practically, my process is I may think about a feeling or an experience that I have with life first. I may try to understand it. I may have some desires lingering at the time, and I may, just have the urge to just want to copy these things that I see, or make them for myself. And I let stuff sit with me for like a long time to make sure it's mine. It's I went over it enough to know that okay, whatever I push out is my thought process, my feeling of it, and then from there, I break it down as it exists. So I work in layers. So I draw within layers, and I use colors to draw within layers. So on the bottom, I'll try to do something like really simple. I made so if I take you as for example in this video, I see your face. I see a lot of reds in there. Red means something to me, so immediately I put down red. So my warmer colors, I start with those, and then I go into the intuitive space. Certain colors mean certain things to me. So whatever I'm getting from you, whether it's my time around you or whatever I'm feeling throughout that day, I place those colors in on that manner, and then I jump to like the more what you would call an academic side of things is where you know maybe taught craftsmanship or taught how to represent some things as we see in the world today. So shape, form, that's very like identifiable, like you can actually distinguish. I have either exaggerated or really refined forms that I lay over top of these things. So my expression is underneath, inside, just like a person. And then, making these things relate is on the top. I tend to use a white China marker to balance that thing out, whether I want to be more expressive or I want to blend or, render more. And as far as like the rest of my objects go, they usually they're talking about whatever central ideal that I'm working on within that piece at the time. So I like to make everything like an ecosystem, and I guess I pulled a lot of my influence from people that I considered used the same thought process as I did. So I grew a strong connection with Greg Saunders. He really is big on working with the essence. So less structure, more essence, but understanding that you need structure. So develop your essence piece by piece by piece to have your own structure. You can't get away with not having structure. Before that, painting, Martia, the first time I met you in her class, she was all about the spontaneity, but she was really into um, classical work, and she didn't paint that way herself, but it was the point of understanding these things and using them as you should. Before that, sculpture. So I mold in my mind before I draw. So sculpture was important. So just pulling all these things in once, or having these things in my mind, and then when I sit down at my table, my desk, my easel, whatever I'm utilizing at that time, I forget. Kind of do what you said about the mood practice. You these things. I'm not over. I'm not overthinking about one thing or not. I want to forget. I know these things are in me. Let me forget. Let me work. Whatever comes out, I'm utilizing that day. So
So I think it might be interesting to talk about what's in common. So I think both of us said when you're originating, when you're creating something or trying to bring something into an idea out, it's a very different mindset than when you're executing that idea,
absolutely.
right? So it's the artistry and then the craftsmanship, or however you'd like to set that up. One requires um, a clarity of mind, like the
Hmm.
artistry, the originating requires a clarity of mind, and it's highly intuitive and spontaneous. It's not critical in any way. It's just kind of like a free flowing thing that comes out. And then once that thing is out, then you critically reflect on it, right? You judge it, you make alterations to it. And then once you decide on a plan, right? Once you see that thing there and you're like, okay, I want to stick with this. Then you make a craftsmanship plan, a way to execute it right. And and then you make the thing, you bring it into being. And everyone has their own journey with art and life. And so they relate to that or they do that in some very different way because this isn't a normal thing that people talk about. It's highly individualized between each person. Can you hear someone talking in the background?
A little bit, but not much.
God damn it. Yeah, my
It's all good.
roommate's out there just like so loud.
Look, life happens.
Oh, she's hanging up.
But I'll speak though. Can I speak on that?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, man. Like, it was really cool. You said the number 9 in that practice that you learned like overseas, and you when you kind of walking through these steps right now to make it simple and clear. um you kind of recall this thing that I use, and it's really just 9 steps. You know what I mean? You start with yourself. You start with what you're relating with. You figure out what you're relating in. Am I relating in myself, or am I relating in like an external environment? You distinguish that. Then you judge it, figure out what conclusions you want to come to. And then once you get a feel for it, is this something I do like or I don't like? And then you pick the things you want to pay attention to. I attend to this part, or I attend to this degree of it. And then you make another judgment, and after that second judgment, you kind of just dive into it. And and then you be able to pull some form of wisdom or knowledge outside of it. And I just repeat those 9 steps, or like the people, like the kids, and people that work with me. I try to like employ or have them employ those 9 steps.
So there is a pattern to it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not madness. There is a pattern to creativity that is in common. But, one thing I love doing studio visits because it's just like it's witchcraft everyone's doing. Everyone goes into the studio and everyone's process is so different. And even the craftsmanship part, it's insane. You never know. You never know what someone does to come up with a thing. My favorite people are extremely elaborate. They try to show me how they come up with an idea and how they execute it, and maybe it'll take them an hour to like explain it to me. I think that's
I
really
love it.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the greatest thing about going to someone's studio is it's so personal, right? You get to see this thing that they've just built on their own, you know. And when you're in a school, you become formalized, right? Everyone's doing the same things, going through the same movements, the same patterns. And then when you leave school and you're left alone, that's when you become a real artist, right? The way we think of it is you develop something on your own, right? And like the things I said, those weren't things I made up. Those were things I synthesized together to create
hmm
something new. I don't think anyone's mixing academic, shoto calligraphy, and Freud automatic drawings, right? I think that's probably just me. Um, Kenny, you referenced teachers that were really important to you, and also like basketball and other living things. You fused all those together to create Kenny's drawing method, right?
absolutely.
And so that's what's hard, I think, with school is you're given a structure to create, and depending on how influential the professor or the master or whoever you're studying with is, you kind of end up a little copy of that person, which is fine. You need some type of method to begin with to make your own method. But you never really become your own master until you make your own method. If you're just riffing off of someone else the whole time, then you're just the B version of that person.
Yeah, that's like the best way to put it. It definitely has to be, all your influences has to stem back to your origin to some degree. And if they don't travel that far back, then they're seasonal transits in your life at the time. If you're really going to pursue this as a real thing, be a real artist, then your roots they have to connect. So it's you may watch someone do something better than you do. They may be able to clarify or speak something that you didn't have a word for. I think that's what we do when we kind of take on these masters, or we become someone's apprentice in some form of fashion or go to these schools. It's just that, hey, you speak that language or you use the word that I just couldn't get out, but eventually I'm going to know how to say that, and once I do, I can't live under your word anymore. I gotta live under mine. And that's where artists really shine, and everyone arrives at that point at different times of their life.
Yeah, it's interesting, it's a very hard transition, but
It
I
is.
think it's a form of empowerment. At first, you're getting your water from someone else's well. You gotta pay
Yeah,
to
you
d
gotta pay
get
your
that
dues.
water. You gotta pay your dues, you gotta go get it from someone else because you don't know how to get it from yourself, and then an artist self-sources, right? They draw from their
Hmm.
own well, um, to do their own thing, right? So, I mean, they teach you how to, education should teach you how to utilize yourself, not how to be dependent, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's it in a nutshell. I mean, that's what we initially came there for. We accept and take on these other things, hoping that that's the result, or some to be like others. But if we can really attain that, then we done our job.
So the first thing I see that the wall that people hit once they start self-sourcing is, either they achieved a level of success with whoever's method of creation,
Hmm.
academic or whatever style of artist you studied under or the university tradition, whatever. They got good at that. And then when they start trying to do their own thing, it's bad, right? And not only is it bad, it's ugly. Because when you do something that's highly individual, it is ugly. Because beautiful
Yeah,
things are conforming to accepted norms, right? Those follow the accepted pattern. But when you do something individuated, it deviates from the accepted norms in some way, and it's ugly. And so when people do something that's creative, that they really enjoyed making, that's actually a personal voice, they see that thing and they get scared and they get embarrassed and they go, I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm just gonna do what I'm good at. Right. And that's when you need a good teacher to step in and be like, no, that
absolutely.
was
There you
that
go.
was it. That was the
That
thing. And a lot of people never realize that.
that's what the teacher is supposed to be there for. Like you said it. The teacher is there to let you know, look, you're supposed to be yourself here. You're not supposed to run away from yourself here.
In creative art, that's what the teacher's like, is a kind of a guide,
A
not
guide,
really telling you what to do. In
right?
craftsmanship, they tell you what to literally do, and that's good. But if you do that in art, that's bad because then you're following
That
someone else's method.
absolutely. And I mean, you said the word like draw within that whole segment like plenty of times. So it's like that's what it's like. You going through all those experiences and knowing what to pull from, what to decide on, and they're showing up in your marks.
Mhm.
So when you draw, and you may discover, oh man, this is not me drawing right now. This is my 5 year practice at this school, or this is my instructor, or I love making sure in every piece that I draw from that 5 year old 6 year old kid at my grandmother's table. If that's not in the drawing, then I don't want to show it.
Yeah, the calligraphy, eh, somehow communicating your essence through a mark, right? Just
Yeah,
like in the Shoto. Yeah. Okay, I think we just tied it together somehow. I think that might have even been the end.
that
But,
that may have been the end.
Okay. Say a nice little thing at the end. So, when we draw to bring something out, to get some idea out, to create something new that doesn't exist, that's where the artistry happens. And if you're a student learning in an art school right now, or you've been studying for a while and you've already achieved a successful method, you're creating from someone else, right? You're creating from someone else's well. You're borrowing from them. But at some point, if you want to develop your own visual language, something that's yours, your imagery, your painting, that when people look at it, they go, oh, that's his or hers, right? And no one else's. You have to go in yourself and learn how to self-source, right? How to originate things from yourself. You have to do that whole thing you learned all over again. You have to make your method, you have to make your mark, you have to self-source to create an artwork that is new, and that's drawing.
Yeah, and that's easier said than done. So hopefully, I mean, I have a little tad bit on how to get that from your instructor if that's maybe not what you're receiving. And crit, we all have critiques on our works, and we may do little critiques on others. You're getting the information you need when a person goes into their life experience. So it's not how do I do that. It's it's more so, hey, how did you arrive at that circumstance? How did you arrive at crafting that mark or what happened? And then when that person tells you their experience, then you know that person made a decision. And like Josh said, you're gonna come to a spot in your own life or a place in your own life where you're gonna need to make a decision, and it's gonna influence your marks. And once you take hold of that and do something with those decisions and your marks, then you're a peer with your instructors. You're a peer with everyone else in the classroom with other artists, with at whatever degree, or but you're there. You made a cup